What's going on, chicken friends? It's Donna Little from the Coop Scoop, and guess what today is? It's warmer. I am able to be out here and sit with my girls and not feel like I'm going to freeze to death. So that is amazing. I've got a few gathered around me. Cora's on my lap. It's awesome. I'm going to soak it up. And the next few days are going to be just as nice. So hallelujah, praise God, because I am over the cold. But that brings me to the topic at hand, which is what kind of bedding, or really honestly in chicken world, it would be considered ground cover, is best to use for chickens in the coop and in the run. And there are probably 4 that might be your top contenders. And I'm going to start with straw. Now, I think that straw definitely has a lot of pros to it. And one of the pros is that it is very absorbent. I don't use straw in my coop. However, I have a small run at the back of my coop where I have quail. And I do put straw in there. I don't leave it down on the ground a lot, but I put it in there simply because of its absorbency. I have an issue sometimes if we have a torrential rain where water will go into the run, and I'm able to just put some straw down for a while and it'll absorb it, and then I can take it back out. So it's very absorbent, which is wonderful because moisture with chickens or any kind of birds like this, quail or whatever, is definitely not your friend. You don't want it in your coop, especially because that's going to cause ammonia to build up. So that is something that you're going to want to look for as a quality in any kind of bedding or ground cover that you use. It is also very affordable. So I can go and buy 1 bale and it's going to last me forever, because what I use it for is, like I said, out there for my quail, but I also use it in my nest boxes. And the reason that I use it in the nest boxes for my chickens is because of it being absorbent, and because of its affordability, because that way I can just change it out often. If an egg happens to get broken in there or something, then, I can usually just grab up the straw around it. It absorbs some of that. It also absorbs if anybody poops in there. So I love it for my nest boxes. And it also is pretty low in dust. So that can be a real issue sometimes in a coop. I think chickens in and of themselves are very dusty. So the less dust that you can have in the coop, the better. It also is wonderful as an insulator. So this is my first winter with the quail, and I have been able to just really mound some up for them and put it in several different cubbies I have for them, and they will burrow themselves a little hole in there, and it keeps them warm. So it's wonderful as an insulator. I do see a lot of people buy bales of it, or maybe they have a farm and they produce their own. You definitely don't want to be using hay that you feed, to use as feed. You want straw. But you can take that and just stack it around your run, and it'll give a little wind break to your chickens. So it's got definitely a lot of pros. One of the cons, however, kind of goes along with the pro, and that is the fact that it is very, no, baby, I'm about to have a chicken knock my tripod down, is that because of the fact that it is very absorbent, it'll also hold the moisture in. So it doesn't release moisture very quickly. So that's when you can run into problems with mold or other pathogens that can cause respiratory illness in your chickens. So you have to watch out for that. If you use it on the ground and they walk in with dirty, wet, muddy feet at night from being outside, or if you do provide water for them inside and it's leaking or dripping or anything, and just their poop, if you're not kind of keeping that cleaned up, it can eventually start to cause problems with there being too much moisture in there. So another problem that I have seen, and it has been a little bit of a concern with me lately, we had snow twice, which is very strange for our area. So none of my current chickens have ever seen snow before. It has not snowed here in 7 years. I put straw down on the ground so they would have a place to walk around, and I also made a path so that I didn't slip and fall from my house to the coop. And I saw my chickens a number of times with a longer piece of straw in their mouth going all the way down into their crops. So it can also be something that can impact their crops. So you can buy chopped straw. You just, I guess, have to find out where you can get it at. I don't really honestly, they don't sell it where I've bought it before, but locally. So I would have to ask, but because I don't really use it as ground cover, I've not really worried about that before. But I have seen people in some of the chicken groups I'm in talk about their chickens getting an impacted crop from accidentally eating it. I don't think they're necessarily trying to eat it, but if it goes into their mouth, they don't have little hands to pull it back out with. So just keep that in mind if you're going to use it as your ground cover. I would say probably either number one or number two, as far as how often it is used, would be pine shavings. Now, I use pine shavings. There are definitely pros and cons to it too. It's easy to keep clean because for me, in my situation, now I have a coop that you can walk into. My coop is actually very large. I can easily see the poop. Now, I don't use the deep litter method, and if you don't know what that is, just, do a quick search on YouTube and you can watch a zillion different videos on the deep litter method. But if you're like me and you don't use the deep litter method, because I don't have to worry that much about cold because I live in the South. If you are in a cold climate, it would be a really good idea to look into the deep litter method because it really helps you hold some heat into your coop. But if you're not doing that and you use pine shavings like I do, it's very easy to go in, see the poop, you're going to clean it up. If you are using the deep litter method, you're just going to be adding another layer. You can even probably do it every day, and then every few days or however, you're going to just sort of mix that around in there, and that is going to create you this sort of composting effect, which will create its own source of heat, and that's going to help keep your chickens warm. It's definitely something that's absorbent, so it's not probably as absorbent as straw is. Hey girl. But it does compost very nicely. So the few times that I've only done the deep litter method like a couple of times. And then I just sort of realized here in the South, we don't have weather cold enough for me to really warrant doing that. But it was so composted down by the time I took it out, it was really nice. So you can use that in your garden. So that's definitely a plus. Also, it's probably pretty comfortable for them to lay on. All right, girl. If I lose the tripod in a second, it is going to be Miss Pearl's fault. Girl, stop. So I noticed over the last couple of weeks when it was really, really cold, I would go into the coop, and especially when we had the snow on the ground, my chickens were not a fan of that. So I would go in and find them laying on the ground in there. And, I'm sure it's really, really comfortable because I have it fairly deep in there. So they enjoyed that. However, pine shavings do come with their cons also. Now, from what I understand, and I've never done it because I've always been told absolutely never use cedar shavings because they are very toxic to chickens. Pine shavings can also be toxic. I don't think anything as bad as cedar, but it definitely comes with a strong scent. And while it smells amazing to us, I'm sure if you are only this tall and you're right down there at it, it can possibly get to be a little too much. So I would say if my chickens couldn't free range and they spent a lot of time in the coop, I would probably look for an alternate thing to use besides pine, because on top of the strong scent, it's so dusty. Now, because I have an open door, I'm able to open the front of my entire coop up because it has a garage door on it. I can air my coop out frequently. It's been kind of closed up while we've had this cold snap, and it's wide open again today. So I don't really worry about that so much. But because of the fact that it can be pretty dusty, if you have chickens that are compromised at all, have respiratory issues, I would definitely rethink maybe using it. Also, because it does absorb moisture, just like with the straw, that can be a pro and a con because it can hold on to that moisture. And if you don't notice it, it can start to mold and create a problem like that, which will create other respiratory issues. And the third different kind of ground cover I want to talk about is sand. And just like the other ones, it has its pros and cons. Now, if you're going to go this route and you decide this sounds like something you want to try, definitely get it's a whole lot of dust in my face, girl. You're going to want to get the coarsest sand you can find, which is going to be like construction sand or river sand. You don't want to use play sand like you would see in a sandbox. It's really, really ultra fine and it's very dusty. So you're going to want to use the coarser, the better. You're going to want to go with that. Now, one of the pros is it is very easy to clean. You can see that poop. You can scoop it up like you would cat litter. I don't use it on my ground, but I have it on my poop boards, and it is fantastic. I love it up there. I go in every morning and I just scoop it like you would a litter box. It is fantastic. It is also, it doesn't really hold moisture. It'll absorb it, but it also drains really well. So those are some of your pros to that. But it definitely comes with its own set of cons. And one of the biggest problems that I see people talk about is just the sheer weight of it. It's hard to, you either have to truck it in and, you know, maybe get somebody to deliver it, or you're going to buy it in huge, very heavy bags. We buy it in 70-pound bags. I would not put it in my coop for a number of reasons. And the weight of it is one, because if I decided I wanted to take it out, because of the size of my coop, I cannot imagine how hard it would be to shovel all of that out of a 12 by 20 coop. I mean, like, I would be exhausted. So I don't want to use it on the floor of my coop, but if you have a much smaller coop, I could see it being a definite something that could be wonderful. I will say this, because there's honestly nothing in it that's going to help you keep smell down if you let the poop sit on there. And if you have any, and chickens do sometimes have wet poops, then it could really start to smell. So that can be an issue. And also, if you have no other ground cover for your chickens to be in or on, if you have it in your coop and you have it in your run, chickens do nothing but peck the ground and look for things to eat. And they could definitely accidentally ingest too much of it, and it can cause their crops to become impacted. And that would be, could be a big problem. So you don't want to go that route. I would say if you want to put it in your coop, then maybe don't put it out in the run, or vice versa. I have it on my poop boards, and then I also have a large area in my quail run for them to dust bathe in, but it's not just everywhere. They also just have the bare ground to be on. So I would think that it would be, a good option in a drier climate. Especially, we are in such a humid climate that when the sand in my quail run gets wet, it does stay wet for a long time. And I think it's just because there's so much humidity here. But I also don't know if I would want it in my coop if I lived in a really cold climate, because it is cold. When I go to clean my poop boards in the morning, especially with this weather that we've had, that is very uncommon for us, but very typical in other climates, in other regions. I mean, I'll have gloves on, like thick gloves on, and it's still, if I have to touch it, it makes my hands really, really cold. So I wouldn't want your chickens to just have that to stand on. Something like, shavings or straw would be much more comfortable for them. But the fourth thing that I want to talk about, Maisie, be a good girl, is hemp. And honestly, I don't use hemp, and I wish I did. If there's anybody out there associated with the hemp company, hit me up, because I would love you to be a sponsor so I could actually afford it. But it is probably the pinnacle. It is like what anybody would want to have in their coop, because it's absorbent, it's odor resistant, it composts well, it's soft. It is, I think they said it's like 98% dust free. Girl, you better stop pecking me so hard. It naturally repels pests. parasites, mold. I mean, it's just anything that you could want in a bedding or ground cover for your chickens, it is. The con is the fact that it's expensive. For me to put enough in my coop with the size my coop is would cost me about $500. Now, from what I understand, you can leave it down a lot longer than you can straw or, pine shavings. I can't, I just can't afford that. What I would love to do now, if I had a smaller coop, and I'm about to, I would use it. When I get my bantams this summer, I'm getting some late in the summer, they're going to have a much smaller coop. I will be able to buy a bag of it and use it in there and, keep it in there for a while. And that way I'll be able to give it a try and maybe down the road use it for my hens, my big girls. But my coop is just too big. I cannot do that. But I would say if you can afford it and you are looking for the best of the best, go with hemp. That is going to be absolutely the way to go. Maybe one day when my chickens start actually paying for themselves, we'll be able to do that. But that is my top 4 different kinds of ground cover that people use. Some pros and some cons. So if there's anything you heard in there that you liked, maybe you can do a little extra research, find some additional info out about it, and make your decision then. Hi, girlfriend. And I hope you guys are enjoying our content. And if you are, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And I'm going to try to remind everybody of this as often as I can. We are having a giveaway, and I'm going to link the video in the description to the giveaway. So if you decide you want to get involved in that and throw your hat in the ring and see, because the drawing is in 1 week from today. So have a fantastic day, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.